Welcome to today's edition of the Magpie Circle podcast. A very special edition it is today too. We're joined by one of Notts County's all-time leading goal scorers, Trevor Christie, 79 goals in 228 appearances, and the club's leading goal scorer in the top flight of English football. He got more than half of those goals in the top flight back in the early 80s. It's 40 years ago. Welcome, Trevor.
Hi, Paul.
Yeah, and I think the first thing I'm going to do, on the basis we're about 35 miles apart, is get rid of my Notts County mask. So I think it's fair to say we are socially distanced enough already.
Yeah, I think so.
Now then, back in the Jurassic era, you were banging them in for us. I want to set the scene for those of our many fans who perhaps didn't see you in your pomp. Chelsea. One of the biggest clubs, not just in England now, in Europe, in the world. Abramovich's millions. Top flight. Little Notts County, unfortunately, in the lower reaches. But 40 years ago, it's a very, very different story. In 1981, in May, might have been the end of April, Notts County went to Chelsea, knowing that victory would put the club back in the top flight for the first time in 55 years. Chelsea were a second-tier team then. They weren't going up that year. West Ham were the form team. Trevor, tell us what that was like, knowing that you could write yourselves into Notts County's history books at a place, at a theatre like Chelsea.
Chelsea was still seen as a big club. Even back then, Paul, when they were in the second division, and we were seen as the little minnows. Nobody expected us to get where we were or be where we were at that time of the season. The lads had, we fought for each other all the way through the season, which was a big thing at Notts County. That's, a lot of our success came down to that we all got on well and we all battled for each other and we knew what each other's jobs were. Howard and Jimmy had done a tremendous job that season. And, we went down to Chelsea. We just did what we did all the time. We did our usual routine on a Friday morning, go through all the set pieces, corners for, corners against, attacking plays, just to get your formations right and everything. And everybody understood where they were on corner kicks against, corner kicks for, and all that. Because it did play a big part in our success. We did that. Jumped on the bus later that afternoon, went down to London, stayed in a hotel, which was the usual thing back in them days that we did for away trips. We'd always stay away in a hotel on a Friday night. We'd have, the pre-match. We'd go down, we'd have a pre-match, an evening meal. And then Dave Hunt, who was best man at my wedding, and still a good friend these days. We used to do our usual routine of going up, watching a bit of TV while lying in bed, having a couple of tinnies, just to relax us before the game on the Saturday. And then we'd get up on the Saturday morning, bit of breakfast or a pre-match meal, and get ready for the game. And then we, on our way to Chelsea.
Let's just wind the clock back a little bit, because I know Sergeant Wilco, aka Howard Wilkinson, he was pretty hot on the old fitness, health, and nutrition. One of his early things, wasn't it, getting you fitter than everybody else? So just wind it back a little bit. A few tinnies in the hotel room watching the telly.
It's just a little routine that Dave and I had. We, people have their own little superstitions and what have you. And it wasn't anything silly, a couple of cans of lager, just to kind of like sit and watch telly. It relaxed us. So, and we were playing decent football. So it was just a routine that we had gotten into, and we took it all on all the time. Not sure whether Howard knew about it, but he certainly never stopped us from doing it. So he mustn't have known about it, to be fair. But it worked for Dave and it worked for me. And it helped relax us, so no harm in it, really.
Who were the other roomies? I dread to think if Rash was paired with Killer or something in other rooms.
I think Rash was with Killer. God, he's gone back now. Pedro would have been in there somewhere. He might have been with Rash as well, but I seem to think Brian and Rash were there. I can't remember who used to room with who. I think Cat used to room either with Gordon or Hooksy. And we all used to, like, you'd get your regular lads that were with each other. And me and Dave just hit it off when we met up, and we were like a couple of brothers, really. Like, we used to knock about and everything, go for a drink together. With the ladies at the time that Sue and Dave's partner at that time got on really well. So we were like before, we used to go out for meals and all that, and then it just went on to, that was your roomie. And you got to know each other, and so you knew when to say something, and you knew when not to say something, and vice versa. If you were having a bad time, you'd try and cheer each other up and all that. So just typical bit of male bonding, really.
Okay, let's fast forward then. The big day, 3 o'clock. Got to say, probably one of the most scariest experiences of my life ever, attending a football match. Yeah. I mean, the Chelsea headhunters were out in force, penned away in a little corner. It wasn't great. But on the pitch, couldn't really have panned out much better. I mean, you got the first, didn't you? You got the first goal?
Yeah, I got the first one, yeah. Rash whipped the free kick in, and it came pretty quickly. It bounced, and I chested it down and hit it on a half volley and caught it really sweet, as sweet as you would like to catch it at half volley, and put it past Peter Barota, who was, I believe, pals with Raddy. But yeah, that got us off to a great start, and then we were grafting away, and we were just battling and fighting for each other, and as a team, that's what we did. We defended for our lives at times. I believe Chelsea, I think they hit the post. I think Clive Walker might have hit the post. So we got away with that one, and then second half come on, and Rash picked the ball up on the halfway line and went on a mazy, and there was 2 or 3 of us shouting, when you're going to pass it. And he just kept going and going and going, past 1, past 2, past 3, past 4, and then stuck it in the bottom corner. And then I think that would probably be the time when there was 11 lads on the pitch and a couple on the bench and a manager on the bench and an assistant manager on the bench and a physio on the bench that thought, bloody hell, we're going to get promoted this year, which was great. And then, like you say, the Mad Max men from Chelsea, they all started, coming on the pitch, invading the pitch, and wanting to try and get the game abandoned. My first reaction was to get to the referee to say, you can't call this off now, not this far in the game. You can't abandon it, because that's what we thought was going to happen. And thankfully, he turned around to me and says, "This game will finish today. At some stage, it will finish today." So that there was a big sigh of relief from me, because we're 2-0 up against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, not supposed to be where we are in the league. A hell of a lot depending on the game for not just the players, but the club in general, and the supporters, obviously, because a lot of supporters have travelled down, as you say, to watch this possible miracle happen. And we didn't want to get it snatched away from us from a bunch of idiots coming on the pitch.
I mean, top marks to the ref, because I think there was a tannoy announcement, and they actually said, if you don't get off the pitch, we'll abandon the game. Which, like, as a Notts fan in that end, you're thinking, what on earth? Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
You can imagine what 11 players on the pitch at the same time, because we worked our socks off, and and Jimmy and Howard on the touchline, and Jack sat there as well, and we're all thinking, "Oh, you can't do that, you can't abandon the game." But like I say, the referee luckily made it known that once the pitch got cleared, we would be coming back out, rain, hail, or shine, to finish the game. And he said, even if I've got to play the game short, it will get finished by a final whistle. So we were, I was chuffed a bit. So when I heard that news, I was quite happy, because, like I say, there was still a bit of time to go, but not a massive amount of time. But we were 2-0 up, and the way we were playing, we didn't look like we were going to let them score 3 in that short space of time. So, it all worked out well.
End of the game, final whistle blew. I think it was another pitch invasion, wasn't it? And they snapped the goal, they snapped the crossbars because it was all on highlights on the main news that night. We should point out this wasn't directed at you guys, although that's not to say it wasn't scary. This was a protest at the then Chelsea chairman, Brian Mears, correct? So they're all marauding over the pitch. You guys, presumably, get back into the dressing room and enjoy it. Yeah, what happened then?
Well, we got off the pitch, and like you said there, none of the Chelsea fans, attacked any of the Notts players or anything. They weren't against what we were doing or the result of the game. They were protesting the way the Chelsea Football Club was being run at that time. So once the whistle went, we got in the dressing room, and there was some champagne bought by John Mountney for the week before against Watford, I believe. That got put on hold, so that was taken out of Chelsea, and it was opened in the dressing room. Chelsea sent some stuff through as well, which was obviously a nice gesture because we got promoted, and the lads just let rip. We just we went mad. We'd come from Norway. I think we were 66-1 at the beginning of that season to get promoted. So the odds tell you that nobody fancies our chances. 66-1, you'd probably be looking at finishing in the bottom 3, not top 3. So we defied all the odds when we made it. West Ham that season were awesome. They were ready to go. Halfway through the season, they would have held their own in the first division. And then we got in there as well. For a club Notts County size and for the history of Notts County, it was fantastic, and it was a great achievement. Dressing room was just carnage. There was drink everywhere. There was plastic cups getting thrown, champagne getting sprayed everywhere. Jack Wheeler ended up in the bath, I think, with his tracksuit on. Howard was soaking with champagne, and it was just great. And then after the game, Mr. Dunnett, our chairman, he obviously lives in London, and we're sat on the bus waiting to drive back to be taken back to Notts in the bus, and we'd got the cans popping and all that, because in them days you were allowed to have beer on the bus back and everything. So there was a tray of bitter and a tray of lager on the bus, but there was a little bit extra added because the wives and the girlfriends had been told that we would be back round about such and such a time, and obviously picking up purses, people, persons from the bus as they got off the bus or as they stumbled off the bus and into the cars to go various ways. And we're all sat there laughing and joking, like boom, 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 and supporters banging on the bus and cheering away and everything. And Mr. Dunnett sat there and we're going, what the hell's he doing on the bus? He never comes on the bus. But he got on the bus just to have the experience of driving all the way back up to Nottingham with the lads after they'd been promoted into the first division, which was brilliant.
So he's gone all the way to Nottingham.
I believe he got the train back to London. So yeah, bit of a good time on the bus on the way back.
Yeah, and not all of you made it out into town, did you? I think your good lady collected you and took you to bed.
Well, yeah.
Hungover, I would point out, by the way.
Yeah, put me to bed, put it that way.
Yes.
When there was a few of the lads like the worse for wear when we got back, because you just everything it was time to relax, and you were promoted, and they couldn't take that away from you. And Howard and Jimmy said, enjoy the next few days, because it doesn't happen very often, like this, like what happened to us. I believe there was a few of the lads went into town. I don't know how they made it because I wasn't able to. Sue picked me up and went home, had something to eat, and a couple of more drinks, and I think I must have fell asleep. And then next day I woke up in bed. So that was my celebration, I think as well, you were just drained physically. Your body had a good stint. You've been working hard all season to gain promotion, to achieve that. We're in the first division. We couldn't go any higher. That's the highest league available to be in, and we'd done it. So we were just like totally drained, funny feeling, kind of empty, but so thrilled and chuffed. You just wanted the next day to come, and so you could start celebrating again. But half the time, I didn't have the energy for 2 or 3 days to celebrate. I was just knackered.
Jimmy and Howard were a great double act. What do you put down that promotion to? Because on the face of it, you had no right to do it.
No. Organisation was second to none. Howard was very, very thorough. Jimmy backed Howard in everything he did, team-wise and training-wise. And Howard would do the training and the set pieces, boom, boom. And then Jimmy would just come in and add his finishing touch. So they worked very, very well, together, and got it across to the lads that, we're not the best players in the world, but as a team, we were a hard team to beat because we were all working for each other, fighting for each other, and that was evident throughout the season, the way we played and the way we battled and the way we fought. And when we went up, that continued amongst a set of lads. And we had a group of lads who knew each other very, very well as well, and we all got on. When you've got a group of blokes working together the way that we were, or we had to work together, you're going to have one or two little arguments, you're going to have one or two little fallouts, but there was nothing major happened, there was, everybody kind of laughed and joked, if some of the lads were going out tonight, lads, if you want to come along, come along. If you don't, fine, it's okay, It was a good squad, a good solid squad who, when we put our kit on and we went on the pitch, we knew what we were doing. Organisation, corner set pieces, free kicks, the way we were playing, all coming out at once, defensive setups, attacking setups. We knew exactly what we were doing, and there wasn't any time during the season where anybody would look baffled and say, what the hell's going on here? Why is that mistake happening? If there was a mistake made, it was rectified very quickly. Ped was good, great at the back, organising. And even though we couldn't understand him properly,
but Spanish accent, yeah.
He got his message across. Don is there, with putting information in. Cat's, vocal. I'm saying my piece. All the lads would chip in. And obviously Killer was just a young lad in them days, but he was a big lad, and he could look after himself, and he quickly got the message, and he was organising people and all that at the back as well. And obviously you've got Ray as well, he's not afraid to open his mouth and tell a few home truths, which is sometimes what you need. But yeah, I think organisation, Paul, it's got to be that. It was brilliant, mate. It was really good.
When I've spoken to Howard, he spoke about one word he used a lot was clarity. And you just said there, players knew their jobs, organisation, drills. I mean, you, in those days when it was unheard of, really, you would still be out on the training ground at 3-4 o'clock in an afternoon, wouldn't you? Yeah,
a couple of times, but, if things weren't going right and Howard couldn't get his message across, we would be training, like you say, till mid-afternoon and past that time, until he was happy with the way he wanted it to be put across and the way he wanted it to be played, and until we were happy with it as well. So if it was defensive stuff, yeah, it's boring for the strikers. If it's the strikers who are doing it, it's boring for the defence. But we're all in it together, and that's the way it was.
Interesting there. You said all in it together. I think probably one of the main reasons the club lost its league status a little over a year ago was fundamentally the dressing room was a pretty rotten place. There was very little camaraderie. There were players that didn't want to be there. There was one player who made themselves unavailable for the final game of the season, which Notts needed to win at Swindon. And undoubtedly that played a part, because on the face of it, the group of the players that had been assembled there shouldn't, irrespective of performing poorly, should never have been in the bottom two. And I guess on the face of it, the group of players that you had compared to some of the other clubs in Division 2, as it then was, you had no right to be more or less in that top three for most of the season.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like, going back to, it's not very often that a bookmaker is wrong. And you don't see many poor bookmakers. But the odds of 60-61 tell you what the bookmakers thought of our chances.
You lumped on, didn't you, as a group of players? You lumped on that.
Some of the lads put a few quid on me.
I don't think the FA are going to retrospectively do you now, Trev. I mean, even if you got a 30-game ban, it wouldn't make a lot of difference to you now, would it?
No, not the way I run these days, anyway. But those, the odds were Cat in Don and a few others, like, they thought the odds were too good to resist. So they put a few quid on and came away smiling with that bonus at the end as well. But nobody expected us to do what we did.
Howard told me that, again, I think he's actually actively involved in the FA now, but the Cat or whoever was organising the money went to see Howard and asked Howard if he wanted to put some money in the kitty to bet on it. And I won't say whether he did or he didn't, but Howard said to me, at that moment, I knew I'd got the players.
Yeah.
He said, I knew we'd got a chance when they came into me saying, do I want to put some money in as well?
Yeah. I've said many a time when people have asked me, like, about Howard and the way he did things, I never felt as fit as I did at any time in my career as I did when Howard had me, for those 3 or 4 years. That's the fittest I've been during my professional career. And I think that a lot of the other lads would say the same. And it showed, because we never stopped. We were working all the way through the game. If somebody was having a bad game, which, you're not going to get 11 players play great every week, week in, week out. You're going to have some lads who, have an off day, just having a bad game, or hit a bad streak. And the other ones, there wouldn't be any snidey, nasty comments. It would be like, yes, you would get the mickey taken out of you, because you've got the legs of Pedro, and you've got Killer, and you've got Rash, and they're always having a laugh and a joke and taking the mickey, and Cat would be trying to wind people up as well. And Hooksy's just so quiet and so dry. When he was taking the mickey, you just used to look and you think, how do you get away with that? How do you get away with saying that type of stuff? But he'd just look at you, say something, and then there'd be a little sly little smile start cracking on his face, and you knew he was just having a little wind up. We played hard, we fought hard, and we looked after each other as well. And I think Howard did get the feel that he'd got all of us on his side, and we were ready to go that season.
A little bit about some of the characters of the players. I mean, let Rash, for instance, a wonderfully talented player. Maverick would probably one word that would be used to describe him. As you know, I spent many years at Leicester City. And when I was speaking with Martin O'Neill, and Martin, who had 1 year, of course, at Notts, he said to me that Rash was the most naturally gifted striker of a football that he had ever played with. Now, when you think Martin played with John Robertson at Nottingham Forest, plus their other European Cup winning players, but he said, Martin's hamstrings would be twinging coming out for the warm-up, so it'd take him 15 minutes. Rash would just walk out of the tunnel, ping a ball, 40, 50 yards, right or left foot, one side of pitch to the other, inch perfect, landed at the bloke's feet on the other side of the pitch.
You'd quite often see Rash in the warm-up as you say, he'd come out and he wouldn't bother stretching, and it was just give me the ball, and then there would be somebody a distance, and it was just ping, 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 and how do you do that? You must tweak something. No, just do it. But he did that every day. When we'd go training, even on the winter's day, he'd be outside, and like we'd be getting ready to do a warm up, and Rash would be pinging balls 40 yards, 50 yards, or shooting from the halfway line, seeing if he get the crossbar. The lad had he got so much time, it was unreal. When he came to the club, and he used to do things in training, and half of us would stand with our mouths open and say, "How the hell did you do that?" And fantastic player, great skills.
Talented striker of a ball, though he was. I'm not sure whether I'm touching one or two raw nerves here. He wasn't always a shoo-in for the free kicks, was he? Because Ray O'Brien and before that Don kind of had a bit of a monopoly on those, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, Don used to take free kicks, corner kicks, everything. When I first joined the club, Don used to take everything. I was sometimes expecting Don to go back and take the goal kicks. It was that mad. But like, if it was around the box, Don would have the odd one, but 9 times out of 10 it was Ray who'd take the free kicks when they got near the penalty area, because he had a sweet left foot, and he could put a ball anywhere in the goal really. Don't know how, because his legs just didn't look right. Ray's legs, because he was not needed a wee bit, and the way he struck a ball it was hard to believe how he could actually whip a ball out, especially them balls in them days, because there's a hell of a difference in the balls that we played with to the balls that are used today.
From left back, he was top scorer one season. He was top scorer. I'm not sure whether you were there, but it was top scorer one season from left back.
I think I just joined the club and he finished top scorer that season. Which is for a fullback a great achievement. If you're a striker, it's not so good.
Yeah. So Ray kind of had the bragging rights for free kicks, but clearly Rash would have been itching to get hold of a few of those as well, wouldn't he?
Rash was, he'd try and get on them, like. But if Ray was in the team, Ray round the box, Ray kind of got them, like. But then when Ray, I think he got injured, and he had a spell out, Rash would kind of take over, and by then Don wasn't in the first team, but Rash was there, and Rash would be on the free kicks around the box and everything. And I remember him hit one at Sunderland, and it's a hell of a free kick. But the lad could strike a ball, like. And again, going back to the balls in them days, the mitre balls, and I think there was some Umbro ones as well, but it tended to be mitre that they played with. And compared to what they play with today, God knows what those three players, Don, Rash and Ray, God knows what they could do with today's footballs.
It's interesting that in that group of players were many players that are kind of in the top 10 or 20 all-time appearance makers for the club. Pedro, Benji, Mark Goodwin, David Hunt, all about 400 appearances. Yeah, unbelievable, really. Pedro was a character, wasn't he?
Oh, it was mad as a box of frogs. When Eddie Kelly came to the club for the spell that Eddie was there, we had some great laughs, because Pedro would take the mickey out of Eddie, the way Eddie spoke, and Eddie just used to rip Pedro to bits, the way he spoke, because when Pedro got excited, he used to have a problem pronouncing his J's. So they always used to come out as yo. So joke would be yoke. So Eddie used to whine Pedro to get him bubbling and that, and then he would say, Pedro would go, you're just, and he couldn't speak because he was that wound up. So we couldn't understand him at the best of times. So like when Eddie had got into him and wound him up and that, what was coming out his mouth, we just didn't have a bloody clue. We just used to stand and just laugh, because the two of them used to rip each other to bits. And Pedro's Pedro. He was never going to change person. He's a funny lad to be around. nice lad, bloody good player, tremendous player.
It's a sweeper, which was kind of unusual at that time.
Yeah. He was spot on. He could play sweeper, he could play centre half as well, he could play fullback. He could play anywhere in the back there. Talented lad, very talented lad, funny lad, who was good to have around the dressing room. Pedro he never used to come back for pre-season. He was always on the move. Back in Spain, he'd come back 2 weeks after everybody else. He'd pay his fine, his annual fine, he'd get fined. And then he joined the training, a week, 2 weeks afterwards, because he wasn't back. We would be back on the Tuesday. He wasn't back till Friday because he's doing the bull run. So, that's the type of lad he was.
Pedro did once step a little too far, though, didn't he? Later on, after Justin Fashanu had joined the club, and you were on a tour somewhere in Kenya, somewhere like that. Take the story up.
I think we were over. We had to come and play a few games over in Nairobi, over that way, because John Chidozie had joined the club, and I think part of an agreement had been settled that we'd go back. And John was obviously an international player, so we'd go back and we'd play a few games over there. And we were on a training site, and we went up to this. Larry took us to this area, and it was a football pitch, but it wasn't a football pitch, if you know what I mean. It was just like, hard earth, dry earth, sand, bits of boulders and bits of rock. So we made the best of it, and we were having a kick about. Fash was having a horrendous day's training. He was having the minger from earth. Whatever he touched just went. His first touch was a clearance, so let's put it that way. And Pedro was dig, 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 dig. And it just went on and on and on. And you could see Fash getting wound up more and more. And then all of a sudden, I don't know whether they'd had a few words. As I said earlier, you're never going to agree with each other all the time. I don't know whether they'd had a few words in private or what, but Fash went to control a ball. It looked like he tried to kick it into touch. It bounced everywhere, bounced off him, and Pedro just came out with a comment like, I can't remember what the comment was, but it wasn't a very nice one. Fash just didn't even bother looking at the ball. He just turned around, walked back up to Pedro. It's the only time in my career that I've seen a lad lying on the floor, and you could visibly see the circles and the little birds going round above his head, And then, so that was training finished, and then we all went back, and they kissed and made up, but it was just one of them days where Fash was having a minger, and Pedro was just taking the pee all the time out of him, and Fash's patience snapped.
Because Fash was a schoolboy boxer, wasn't he? A youth boxer, so he was handy.
Well, he could look after himself, and it was just a little jab, like, but it caught Pedro in the right position, and put him on the floor. But next day they're all right again. They're chatting away, and and you're playing the games, and then you're back to work, and it was quickly forgotten. A lot worse things happened in football, but
absolutely. I think one of the key players, people always talk about the spine of a team, don't they? Spine of a team. Radi Avramovic. So, as we'd said earlier, Petar Barota. So there were two Yugoslav goalkeepers playing in the English second division, is it then, one, and they knew each other. Radi was a quality keeper, wasn't he? A quality keeper.
Yeah. He was a good keeper, good shot stopper. Confident in his own ability, and you quickly saw what you were getting with Radi, and you thought, we've got half a chance here. He never let me down. Never let me down.
Language barrier, not fluent English, was it? He had one of these kind of selective understandings of English when it suited him, didn't he?
Yeah, he could understand perfect English and could speak perfect English when he wanted to. But if there was something he didn't agree with, or he didn't want to get involved with it, sorry, don't speak the language. You know, it was one of them. It was quite funny because at times he would just look and clam up as if to say, I don't know what you mean. And other times, like, he'd be there giving it perfect English coming out his mouth. So yeah, that was funny to watch.
And any linguistic skills didn't get in the way of his cards playing ability. He was pretty useful in the card school, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he took a few quid off me before. Yeah, he was a very good card player. He got a poker face, hadn't he? You know, I mean, he used to sit on the bus and, you know, we'd be sat playing cards and just, you know, to pass the time, like, you know, but you're there and Raddy would be there with his box of fags down by his side, like, you know, and he'd be sitting like, and smoke would be coming out, and then he'd just drop, you know, 3 kings, whatever it may be, like, and just get the pot. And, you know, it's quite funny to watch. Quite dry, very dry. Yeah.
Now, obviously, Raddy's had a health scare over the past 12 months. Yeah. But I think you have some good news with that for everybody, because you've very recently been in touch and got a message back from him, correct?
Yes, I've been in touch with Raddy. Obviously, you know, he's in touch with a few of the lads on Facebook and that. But I've sent him personal messages and that, and we reply and everything. He was asking how my family was, and I was asking about his and that. But yeah, I got some really good news because you know, they got the news that he got health issues towards last year. But yeah, I spoke to him the other day and he sent me this message back. I'll read it out for you because it's the best way to get it across. Hi Trev, I finished with my therapy in February and now I just have regular checkups. In the last checkup, all is okay, no problems. I am now in Serbia, bad situation because of Corona, but the same like everywhere for everyone else. Then he asks how my son is, because the last time Raddy thought my son was in Myanmar teaching, because both my lads are teachers, John, the oldest one, and Ross, the youngest one. But John's now in Moscow teaching. So he said his son is in Singapore. How are ex-Notts players? I'm sure you're in contact with most of them. From time to time, I see on Facebook, Ian, Don, Rashid. Give everyone my best regards to all and keep in touch, Raddy. So it was nice to get that back, just to like kind of clear up that he was, you know, he's feeling a bit better and his health's not as bad as what it was obviously last year.
I'm sure every Notts fan would send Raddy their best wishes, and that's great news for Raddy. Great news for Raddy. Great news for all of us. We talked about the players. Let's just allow ourselves a couple of moments of indulgence with key games in that top flight. And yeah, clearly there is one club who Notts County fans enjoyed playing and beating more than most. Forgive the accent, but like everyone tries to do a Jimmy Cyril accent, everyone does a Brian Clough accent. And, you know, I remember, and this is true, in his programme notes, Brian wrote about the problems he had playing Notts County. He said, I don't know why we keep playing that lot across the river. We might as well just give them the point straight away and be done with it. Some magical games, yeah.
I thought it was in his office there for a minute.
It's a terrible accent, but we all have a go at it. And it's the same with Jimmy Cyril, you know. Everybody you speak to, when I was writing my book, everybody I say, tell me a story about Jimmy, and everybody breaks out trying to do a Jimmy Cyril accent, which is actually a lot harder than a Brian Clough accent, to be fair. 2 games. Let's deal with the first one. First season back in the top flight. Played in January at the City Ground. Forest had won European Cups 18 months earlier. We're now playing them on level terms. Tell me about the dynamic of you as players for Notts, players for Forest, and then 2 days of the year, that all went out the window.
Yeah, like you said, you know, most of the year, you know, you're laughing and joking. You've got social events on and that, and you know, we were chatty, friendly to each other. There was a couple of snooker tournaments held. Forest County, Atlantic Navy Snooker Club. I arranged one time, and then I think Ian Boyer arranged a return one, so we were having them.
Who were the best snooker players?
Rash is good.
You're not bad.
I'm not bad. I'm all right. I can hold my own.
Who was the best for Forest?
Bomber's decent, and Ian Wallace was, if I remember rightly, was very good. He was a good snooker player. Yeah. So you socially you're mixed and you're laughing and then the other 2 days of the year you kick shit out of each other. Excuse my language, but that's what you did. But after the game, you were friends again, and you'd see each other out. You're all right, yeah. And we all knew the Forest lads, and the Forest lads all knew us, So,
what was that feeling like? Is it any different to a professional footballer who goes about his profession, unlike me as a Notts County fan, a Forest fan, when the first game against Forest at the City Ground, you won 2-0. You got one of the goals. Hooksy got one, played it off Shilton's chest or something, if I remember right. But all set up ultimately by Raddy because he saved a penalty from John Robertson. And Robbo didn't miss many penalties. No. Very, very, very few. And true story, there's the Evening Post photographer caught a picture, got a photograph of Raddy diving, and he's got this split second where Raddy's hand is on the ball on the goal line, saving it. And I got that blown up, and it was above my, at my parents' home in Bakersfield. So I've got a picture of Raddy, full stretch, one hand on the ball, saving Robert's penalty. Most normal teenagers, right, would have some page 3 pictures up there, right? Yeah. Me, I've got a picture of Raddy Avramovic saving a John Robertson penalty. Yeah. Seminal game, I think, for a lot of people associated with Notts, because it was kind of the day we would say we came out the shadow of Forest. I know it's only for a day. Yeah, but we had the rights. We had the bragging rights.
Forest are Forest, 2 European Cups. Forest fans, they'll gladly remind you of that on every opportunity they get, and quite rightly so. But we more than held our own against Forest when we used to meet each other. We played them a couple of times behind closed doors, and the games were always taped in. And I think, on a couple of times, we would probably have come out on top of them on the ones that I played in. Thinking back, we didn't have many bad results against them. And in the league, God, like Cloughy said, we were their worst nightmare because they just didn't seem able to turn us over. And they had some cracking players at the time, and like you say, you're going back to that one where Raddy saved the penalty from Robert. Robert very, very rarely missed a penalty. Throughout his career, he was a great penalty taker. But Raddy saved that one. He guessed correctly, made the save, and then we got the momentum from that and went on, and we ended up winning it quite easily. Hooksy gets the goal, plays a 1-2 off their goalkeeper. It doesn't matter how they go in as long as they go in. But that would be a thing to do. He would probably try and play the 1-2 off the goalkeeper and own Hooksy, because the little bugger, that's what he used to do. In it, I got one, which I was quite lucky. I scored a few times against Forest. I think that's why Cloughy tried to buy me, to keep me from scoring them. So yeah, we more than held our own against Nottingham Forest.
That was a great day. For me, if I was going to say my all-time greatest game that I've watched as a Notts fan, because as an 18-year-old, I was a student in Sheffield. It was the best times ever in my lifetime following Notts. The 3-2 game on the telly, at Meadow Lane, 4 goals in the first half, a worldie from Paul Hooks, which you managed to get out of the way, thankfully, for.
Yeah, Hooksy nearly took my head off with a volley, but I nearly screwed the whole move up because I was just about to either take it on my chest or put my head to it, and I got a shout I was coming in on it, and I got a shout from, I was going back on it, and I get to shout, Tommy, leave it, Tommy. And I just basically stopped in my tracks and just bent down. And the next thing is whoosh, Hooksy's hit this volley, and it's like just flown into the goal. Like, it was a great goal. But yeah, I nearly got in the way of things, like, so luckily I didn't. Hooksy got the goal, and then it was ding dong. It was one of them. It was an ideal game for both sets of fans. So, if you come away from a football match and you say, I didn't enjoy that, there must be something wrong with you, because it's a type of game. If you'd never seen football before in your life, you thought, "Oh, that's one sport I want to go and watch every week if it could be like that." Because it was ding dong, there was scuffles, there was tackles going in.
Cat got sent off, didn't he?
Yeah, Cat got sent off. I think he had a little foray with Bomber, which usually happened in those derbies anyway. Like, because Bomber used to put yourself about, Cat used to put yourself about, and you knew something was going to happen. In some stage, some part of the pitch, something was going to go. But yeah, Ian got sent off, but we managed to sneak the 3-2.
You got the winner?
I got the winner, yeah. I mean, it was... Big Willie Young was marking me, and we were in the box, and I turned like a JCB, and just managed to poke it past Suddy. So nice, we get another victory. So that's 2 wins I can remember quite easily.
I think as well, for Notts fans, that was a brilliant occasion as well. I remember. Do you remember the Meadow Club at the one end of the ground? Yeah, where all the milkmen would go after they finished the milk round and order their chip cob at lunchtimes. Yeah. Well, there was a do in the Meadow Club that evening. I can't remember whether any of the players went, but I went with my mates. And we had about... I'm not a big drinker. We must have had about 8 pints of cider. I didn't really like bitter much in them days. I think all you could get was something like Strongbow, was it, or Bulmer's Woodpecker. They're the only 2 brands of cider. There's 10,000 of them now. So I've gone home, and I was playing for Notts County supporters at the time. Thankfully, it was a Sunday afternoon, not a Sunday morning. So I woke up the following morning with my Radi Abramovich photo saving the Robbo penalty above my head, and I've looked at the wallpaper, and I've been ill, Hannah. I've been sick all over the wall. I've thrown up all over the wall. I thought, oh, God, blimey. So I've got up, and before I could clear it up, my mum's come in, and I said, it's nothing to do with the beer. I said, it's nothing to do with the cider. I said, you made me that beef burger before I went out, and you didn't cook it properly. That's why I was ill. So that was my excuse anyway. But it's funny. We remember, certainly I do, all the things in the 80s, and I base it around where Notts were playing, who we got beat by, who we lost to. I can remember everything, because it was that kind of pivotal moment in time with Notts being a top flight club, And I'm sure from your career perspective, must have been wonderful, wonderful times that 1 week it's Arsenal, next it's Manchester United, then you go down to Tottenham. Great times. And almost the very, very first weekend of back in the top flight set the tone for those years. Aston Villa won the title. They made a massive tactical error.
Oh, yes.
Before a ball was kicked. Go on, you take the story up.
First game of the season, the lads that they've got the 60-61, and they put the odds away, and then on the coupon for that day, because a couple of lads used to do a couple of silly little coupons, and I think we were the biggest price ever quoted on a single game to win. I think it was something stupid like 18-1 or something, just on a one-off game. Ridiculous. And I think it still holds the record for the highest price ever given on one game. But we go to Villa Park. We do the set. We prepare the same as we did for all the games with Howard and Jimmy. We did the Friday stints with the set pieces and everything. On the bus to the game in the morning, because we travelled up to Villa Park. Gets changed. We goes out for a warm up. And we're starting warming up, Rash is pinging his 40-yard passes and everything. And you're doing your stretches and you're looking and you're thinking, you shouldn't be doing that, because they were parading the trophy around the ground. Well, that just wound us up even more.
The whole Villa squad are running round the pitch, aren't they, with the trophy, taking the adulation of the fans while you're warming up.
Yeah, while we're warming up. And they must have thought, well, obviously, it's only not counted, you know, they just got promoted. We're champions, you know, this year's champions, but we're going to spank them, you know, we'll just put a kit on and turn up. But yeah, they were going around the ground and everything and showing the trophy off and everything and laughing, you know, jumping up and down and all that stuff and everything. And the whole end is, you know, the roof's going off and everything. And we're just standing there like, looking and thinking. And the more you looked at it, the more you just wanted to say, right, you ain't gonna get anything out of this. We went back in the dressing room. Jimmy and Howard both had their say about what had just occurred. And there was some choice words used. And they said, if there's ever an incentive to go and turn somebody over now, you've just had it. So it's up to you boys. And to be fair, Jimmy and Howard didn't have to say anything to anybody that day. We just went out and we fought for every damn ball. If somebody was in trouble, there would be another one right up behind him to back him up. And we just fought for each other, played our socks off. And, you know, Cat scores a great error from Hoopsy's corner, but again from a set piece, which we worked on, you know, so that shows you it's worth doing. You know, I'll make a run, take a big centre half away to the near post, because sometimes they put a little corner into the near post and I touch it on for somebody coming in at the far post. But this time, Hoopsy misses me out and puts it in the middle of the goal, and Cat's end, gets up like a salmon and puts it in the net. And yeah, we had to scrap and they had their chances and everything, but you know, that's a football game. But no, they made a massive error in parading that trophy, and the way they paraded it as well, you know, it just wound us up so much. And you know, you could see the lads, there was steam coming out of everybody's ears when we went back in the dressing room, you know, and thinking, yeah, well, that shows you how much respect. I think Howard said something about that's how much respect they don't have for you. So 2 words to that effect, but he didn't have to say that. We were chomping at the bit to get out, and when we went out, we certainly gave our all and ended up getting a result.
When I was at Leicester, Alan Evans was assistant manager to Brian Little, and Alan, of course, was the captain for Villa through those years. Oh, in conjunction with Des Mortimer, and I often used to rile him about that. And he said, I can't believe we did it. He said, I can't believe we did it. It was something to do with the fact that the trophy. Sorry, we just got internet. We're still okay, Harry?
You broke up a little bit there.
Yeah. Are we okay again now,
yeah,
Harry? Yeah. Good. I'll rephrase. I'll go through the question again, Harry, so I can just pick that up. I actually know Alan Evans, who was a key player in that Villa side. Worked with him at Leicester City when he was an assistant to Brian Little, and I often wound Alan up about that. And he said it was an absolute ridiculous decision by whoever to insist that they did that. It was something to do with the way the fixtures had fallen and how they'd won the league, that they couldn't do it at a final home game or something. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to do it for the fans. But clearly you do that in the season it is, not the following season. Massive, massive error. Yeah. Now, for those of us watching this on video, I am now producing an Adidas medical bag, which was as used by the one and only Jack Wheeler. Now, normally when you delve into a medical bag, you're going to be put under pressure at TC. Normally when you delve into a medical bag, you expect plasters and ice bags and everything else. Do you know what I'm going to produce out of this, Trevor?
Probably a little bottle of scotch or something.
A very large bottle of scotch. Now, why would that have been kept by Jack Wheeler? Spill the beans. Come on.
We had a game coming up at Meadow Lane, and I wasn't feeling too clever because I was recovering from a heavy bout of flu, and I went to see Jack, and he they said, come and see me just before we go out. So just before the buzzer went, that the referee sets off to tell you to go out onto the pitch, I went to see Jack. I went into his treatment room, and he said, "Here, have a little swig of this." So I had 3 little quick sips, and went out, and I went out and I had a decent game, and I scored 2 goals. So that became my little ritual for each game, each home game, and if possible on the away games as well. It seems like I've got a drink problem, but I used to have a bottle of, keep a bottle of scotch in a medical room in a cupboard. Sometimes he'd put it in his bag as well if we were going on an away trip. But he had, the white bandage that you get the wrap after you put your crepe bandage on, you'll put the other stuff on the top of it, stick it on side. So he did the whole bottle in that, and then wrote liniment, rubbing off, and he put it in the cupboard. So Jimmy didn't know it was whiskey in the bottle, but I used to go every game just before we go out on the pitch. I got into a routine because I'd scored the 2 goals, and it used to just give me a warm tingle, and I felt good about it. But it was just a little ritual. It was, like I say, it was only 3 little nips, and out you went. And hopefully you'd score a couple of goals, or you'd have a decent game. And so that's where that come from. But yeah, it used to be in the cupboard or in Jack's little hole. There wasn't a lot else in Jack's hole in them days. It was generally some cold spray, some Ralgex, and a big sponge, and that was it. That's what Jack used. Jack would get you back after the game and everything, and the following week you'd be on the treatment table and you'd get all the proper treatment and that. But there wasn't a lot in his bag, to be fair.
Single malt liniment. I've heard it all now. I've heard it all. 2 years with Howard at the helm. 14th, 15th in a 22-24 team division. Held your own. Didn't threaten the top, but equally was seldom threatened by relegation. Seldom in the bottom 3 thinking, crikey, we'll go win the next 3 games whilst we're stuffed here. Yeah. Howard left to go to Sheffield Wednesday. Everyone kind of thought it was his destiny because he was a Sheffield lad. Howard told me absolutely not the truth. His contract was running out, and he was very happy to sign another one. But in typical Jack Dunnett negotiation mode, they had a kind of disagreement over £250. It's the total value, whole value, not a week, 250 quid over the whole year they were in dispute over. And so Howard said, I had every intention of signing it.
Yeah.
But I just didn't get round to it because ideally I wanted the extra 250 quid. It was because Jack then didn't offer that 250 and Howard didn't sign a contract, and he would have stuck with that contract, that there was an opportunity that Sheffield Wednesday made a move. You look just behind us at that time were Watford, Graham Taylor. Graham established a dynasty at Watford, and cup final, 2nd or 3rd in the league, whatever it was. Do you think Howard, in conjunction with Jimmy, could have, if not quite emulate what Graham did for Watford, but do you think they could have established Notts as a first division club over 5, 6, 7, 8 years? Because a lot of those players, you were quite young, weren't you? You were not 35-year-olds. They weren't players that needed replacing. Don had been replaced, if you think about it, very successfully. Yeah. And Don was the best player I've ever seen pull on the black and white stripes of Notts County. But he was successfully replaced. What do you think could have been achieved?
I do think something like what Graham Taylor did at Watford could easily have been done. The next target would have probably been to say right? It's 14th, 15th. Let's just see if we can get 10, 12 into the top 10. I mean, a club like Notts County to potentially get into the top 10 of the First Division with the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, Man City at the time, you know, people just laugh at you. But why not? Why wouldn't it have been able to achieve that? As you say, all the lads, I think Ryan would probably be about the oldest. You know, you got Nigel Worthington, just a young lad. Pedro was old. Killer was just bad, wasn't
he? Yeah.
You know, you got Goody, Mark Goodwin's a year younger than me. You got Rash wasn't that old. You know, mid-20s, late, you know, 27, 28. Hooksy, younger than me. I joined Notts when I was 19, so I would be under 20. I was 25 when I went to Forest, so I would be under 25. But we were all around that age. Cat is a couple of years older than me, so Cat would have been about 27 maximum. Gordon Mayer, similar age to me. You know, yeah, I think Howard and Jimmy could have done something special. And to say it's 250 quid over a year, it's just not worth, you know, it's unbelievable. It is. I'm gobsmacked for 250 quid a year. What's that? 4 quid a week? Yeah. He should have put £5 each way at 66 to 1.
He might have done. We don't know, do we? He might have done. The season Notts went down. Ironically, for you, was your best ever season, and you were battling all year to be the top English goal scorer in the top flight of English football, weren't you?
Yeah. I think me and Steve Moran went hammer and tongue for most of the year. Both ended up on 25 at the end of the season. But I should have. I mean, Rushy romped it that season. Liverpool were tremendous. I mean, I think he scored about 30. I think he scored about 39. And Stevie Archibald, Tottenham, was on the scene as well.
Scotsman, yeah.
So you'd have Rushy Welsh, Archibald Scottish, and then you'd have Moran and myself, the English lads. But yeah, you know, again, two clubs that weren't necessarily everybody thought, you know, oh, they're going to be up there. You know, we were down the bottom struggling. We ended up getting relegated, but I should have picked Steve Moran, because last game of the season at Meadow Lane, we beat Wolves 4-0, and I'd scored 2, and I was on the penalties anyway, and we got a penalty, and John Burridge was in goal, and I ended up just, for some reason, I always used to look at the goal, put the ball down, look at the goal, and I'd pick my side where I was going to put them. And then I'd turn around, walk away with my back to the goal, just turn around, run up and strike it, and I wouldn't change my mind. But in the run-up, I thought, just whack it, just blast it. And I changed my mind from the side I was going to put it, and I wellied it, and it hit the bar and come back, flew back past me. I hit it that hard. It went past me. One of their players hooked it up the pitch. They broke away. Wolves broke away and nearly scored. I think Raddy made a save to give a corner away. And then when I went in after the game, Jimmy gave me the biggest bollocking, because I nearly put them on the attack, and they nearly got a goal. And that was from my penalty. But yeah, I should have beat Steve Moran by 1 goal. So
and another supreme irony: you're a proud Geordie, and Newcastle United is your team.
Only when they win.
You actually priced, by scoring so many goals, you priced yourself out of a dream move to Newcastle, didn't you?
Yeah. Still rankles a little bit when we know.
I should think it does. You had to make do with Forest.
Yeah, I couldn't do it second best, didn't I? Later on in my career, when I joined Derby, Arthur Cox was the manager at Derby, and once he got me to agree terms to move from Forest to Derby, he told me the story, because he was the manager at Newcastle at the time, and it was just before Kevin Keegan and I came on the scene up there. But they they'd been watching me apparently, and they wanted a big straight out target man to play up front, and I was their choice. And they put a bid in early in the season, and it was accepted by Notts, but I never got to know of it. I later found out, well, it came out in the newspapers in the northeast. There's a paper up there called the Evening Chronicle, which is similar to the Nottingham Evening Post that used to be out and about around Nottingham in the areas. And it was on there, Christie set for Newcastle, blah, blah, local lads, you know, set to join Newcastle United. And the story was in, I've still got the cutting upstairs in the attic in a box of memorabilia stuff, cuttings and what have you. And my mum and dad were, my brothers and that were so excited because they're on the phone, like, when you come, I said, it's just a matter of me getting a phone call. I said, they've accepted the fee, so it's just a matter of getting a phone call and saying, right, go and speak to them. And I said, what will happen then is we'll drive somewhere, we'll meet up with the Newcastle team, and then, you know, see if we can agree terms and everything. Oh, right. So anytime soon? Yeah, it'll be soon. So anyway, I had one of them seasons where I just kept, you know, someone would shoot, it would hit me on the back of the head and it would go in the net. It was one of them I just kept scoring on a regular basis. And every time I scored, Newcastle on the Monday morning, they would ring up and it would be, right, can we get this? He scored on Saturday, so we want another $5,000, or we want another $10,000, or we want another 5, you know, and this just kept going and going and going. And eventually, Newcastle got fed up with it, and it got to the stage where, you remember Joe Harvey, the ex-Newcastle manager?
Yeah.
He was the general manager upstairs on the scouting system at the time, like, and he actually rang me on a Sunday, and he said, "What the hell's the matter with you?" I says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Do you not want to come to Newcastle?" I says, "You're joking, aren't you?" I says, that's like asking a Cockney lad if he wants to play for Arsenal or if he wants to play for Spurs. I says, "I'd walk up the M1 to join Newcastle." I says, "I'm a Newcastle fan." I says, I'm from a little town, you know, 20 miles further on than Newcastle. I says, "I want to play for Newcastle." I says, "I'm just waiting for them to say yes." He says, "Well, that's all we wanted to know." He says, "Because we thought you didn't want to come." And I said, no, not at all. So he says, "Right, we'll be in touch." And I never heard another thing. Notes just kept going, bang, 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 up in the price. And then Arthur Cox told me the whole story when I joined Derby. So ifs and buts.
And maybes.
At least I got to play for the Magpies, and I got to play in black and white stripes. It just wasn't NUFC.
Right. Hey, we're all delighted you did. We're coming to the end now. Congratulations are in order to you and your good lady Sue, because it will be your 40th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Now, despite being a top-class footballer, you didn't go on a honeymoon to the Bahamas or around the world trip or hire a castle. You know, as they do these days, they hire a castle, don't they, and sell the media rights to Hello magazine. Now, your wedding was a little bit different, wasn't it?
It was slightly different due to the fact that Sue's got 2 sisters, Karen and Judy, and all the 3 girls, unfortunately for her dad, all the 3 girls got married in 1 year. So Karen got married at the beginning of the year. Judy was in the middle, and then I thought I'd be clever, and I thought might as well make 3, another hat trick. So we got married in September, but obviously the season had started, so we were due to play Bristol City away on a Saturday. I was recovering from injury, but I was still in the squad because they weren't sure whether I'd make sub or not. But they didn't risk me on a Saturday. But I travelled down to Bristol with the team and everything, and that was the day that Rash introduced himself to Jerry Gow, because Jerry had been very uncomplimentary towards Notts during the week. So you know, we fought and battled in that, and Rash left a little mark on him. to say the least. And then we travelled back. So we travelled back to Norwich, and then Dave Hunt and myself made a trip back over to Leicester, where I went to a hotel to meet up with my family that had come down from the northeast, because Dave was my best man at the wedding. And then we got married on a Sunday morning. And Sue's dad, being a man who loves his Sunday roast of Yorkshire pudding and beef, we had a wedding reception at the White House in Leicester, which was a cracking place at the time. But we had a sit-down Sunday lunch as our wedding meal, and which went down very, very well with everybody. And then Sue and I left later that afternoon, went home, had beans on toast, because I had to be in on Monday morning for some more treatment and training, because we've got a game against QPR on the Tuesday night in the League Cup, which I believe we won, and I think I managed to get a goal as well. So then we had to wait till the end of the season before we could go and have a honeymoon. But yeah, it is 40 years coming up in September. I believe Gordon, Mayer and Christine, they had just celebrated 40 years as well, because there's a couple of us around similar. So congratulations to them if they ever watch this.
Very good. And I trust it was a very, very deluxe honeymoon you took your good lady on.
Yeah, I think we went to Greece. Yeah. Greece rings a bell for some reason.
Obviously a memorable one then.
Yeah. I wasn't on the whiskies then. I was educated by then. I was thinking wine then. So.
Of course, one of your sons, it would appear that Vladimir Putin has a desire to establish Russia on the international sporting stage in the sport of rugby league. And your son, John, is playing a key role in this.
Yeah, I've got two lads. Youngest one, Ross, he's about to become head of his department at a new school down in London, Wetherby. So he's done very well for himself. And John, he loves his travelling. He's taught. He started off in Beijing, where he was 3.5 years, and then he was in Myanmar, and now he's in Moscow. But he's always played rugby. He's always had a love for rugby league. And he's a decent player. He played for Nottingham Outlaws for a few years as well. Still keeps in touch with them. But yeah, he's been playing out in Russia, and he's got involved with. It used to be one of the major sports out in Russia, rugby league, and it kind of died a death. But they're trying to rebuild it and get it established again, which is going to be a big job. But he's just managed to get himself on the committee of the rugby league, Russian rugby league, and he's on the committee now. So he's having an input on there, and he's loving it. He loves his life over there. He's married a lovely girl over there, Amelia, and Sue and I are now proud grandparents of a little granddaughter called Nicole. So yeah, life's going well for him, and he's hopefully putting the right sounds out to get rugby league established back in Russia.
Trevor, absolute pleasure and a privilege. I think, as I said before, those early 80s were very, very special, very, very memorable years for Notts County. And I do feel quite guilty now for the younger generation. My son Harry, he produces these. He's 22, and one flirtation with a fourth division title. Lee Hughes, Munto era Sven. That's as good as it gets. That would have been the absolute worst case scenario back in the 70s and the 80s. Yeah. So, and you were a key part of that. So thank you for all the memories. You always have a very special place and welcome at Notts County. Great to talk, and we hope in future episodes to be getting some of your teammates on to dish a bit more dirt and give us a bit more insight into those great days of the late 70s and early 80s. So thank you very much indeed, Trevor. It's been a great reminiscent trip down memory lane. Look forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah, thanks very much to you, Paul. Thanks to Notts County supporters and everything for my time there. you know, it's sad to see the club where they are now. But you know, that's football. I would never have expected Notts to be where they are now. You know, but fantastic club, and always make me welcome. You know, when I go back for anything, you know, I've been back a few times to see yourself and that. Always make the ex-players welcome and that. So you know, fingers crossed, things will start to go on the up for the club. But it's been my pleasure doing this, and I've had a good bit of fun with it, mate.
Thank you very much indeed, Trevor. Take care.
Cheers now.